configure for HTTPS. Do we tick this box or not? When we're creating a new ASP.NET Core Web API project, this is one of the options that we're going to look at. And I'm going to make the case that we should not tick this box when we create a new API project. So let's go ahead and have a look at the differences between having it ticked and not ticked, and why I think that we shouldn't, why I'm going to suggest that we shouldn't tick that box. All right, so let's create this project. Just to show you, this one's called HTTP on. Let's go next and create. Then we'll go ahead and create another project. If Visual Studio lets me, new project, a web API. This one is HTTP off. Next, and we'll flick that off. We're going to keep Docker on because we want to see the difference in the Docker file as well. Alrighty, get rid of these. Okay, so we have two projects, one with HTTPS on and one with HTTPS off. So what are the differences in what's created? An easy way to do that is you can select both of the files you want to compare and then right click, compare selected. I prefer to do this in Visual Studio Code. It just seems to do a better job for me. So let's have a look at program. That's off on top and on the bottom. Compare selected, and the difference is HTTPS redirection is on, or is being used. Okay, cool. What about the Docker file? So if we have a look at that, compare selected, all of these differences are just the project name, on versus off. But obviously what we're doing here in the Docker file is also exposing port 8081 for the HTTPS. Okay, no problem. And what about the project file? Let's take a look. HTTPS off and HTTPS on. Anything different in here? Okay, we've got a new secret that we're referencing. That will be for the developer certificate for the SSL. Okay, so that's the differences. Great. Now, should we keep these differences or get rid of them? No, I think that we should get rid of them. Why? Simplicity. We don't need HTTPS when we're running it locally. So we don't need this extra secret. We don't need developers to do anything extra to get it working locally. Not that that's particularly difficult. And we don't need HTTPS redirection when we're running locally. But also, we don't need HTTPS redirection when we're running in the cloud. Now, this depends on your the host that you're going to use. So I'm usually running things in Azure in an app service. And so let's just take a look at what the documentation says. App service terminates SSL at the front end. That means that TLS requests never get to your app. You don't need to and shouldn't implement any support for SSL into your app. Okay, all right. Well, what if we're not using Azure Web App? Maybe you're using NGINX. Now, I'm not an expert on NGINX, but I just thought I'd have a quick look at this. So you can terminate HTTPS traffic from clients, relieving your upstream web and application servers of the computational load. And this particular article, which I'll link to in the show notes, shows you how to configure that. So ultimately, it depends on your host and how you have it configured. But usually your host will handle the SSL termination. And so you shouldn't be doing it in your application. There's always exceptions to the rule. But if we can simplify our code, our setup, as much as possible as we progress through the development cycle, then that's going to help us down the track. So what we can remove here is we can remove this HTTPS redirection. We can take this, we cannot expose that port in the Docker file, and we don't need this secret as part of the project. Okay, little things at the moment, but little things grow into big things. If you include the SSL and HTTPS redirection now, it can give you a problem down the track. Okay, now just to highlight what this means, created this very comprehensive diagram. When a web request comes in by HTTPS, 100% you need to ensure that you're using HTTPS in your application. It just needs to be handled by the host. Comes into the app service or whatever your host for your application is, could be NGINX. That will then communicate with your container or containers via HTTP, not HTTPS. And so therefore, let's simplify things and leave it out. But what if we're not using Docker? Well, it's the same story. If it's an ASP.NET Core application that is the service that is hosted on the app service, it will be communicated with via HTTP. It doesn't matter if it's Docker. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in. If you found this helpful, please do the like and subscribe thing. Check out the show notes for some useful links, and be kind, be curious, and create something great.